So our next speaker has been singled out as the father of the modern strategy field, as the world's most influential thinker on management and competitiveness, as the doyen of living management gurus, and much more. But I promised that the introduction wasn't going to take longer than the speech, so I was just going to stop at that point. But Michael Porter's contributions actually are legendary. They have transformed the way policymakers and business leaders and academics think about a host of critically important business, economic, and social issues. In fact, I'm sure there isn't a single person in this room who hasn't had the opportunity to interact with his contributions in at least one of the following many forms: business strategy, competitive strategy among nations, regions, states, cities, economic development, healthcare, the environment, corporate responsibility, and so on. Now, we've got a bio in the program, and it details his career highlights and his writings and his accolades, and so I'm not going to repeat those details. But I am going to highlight the fact that today we have the opportunity to catch Michael at a particularly interesting point in his career. Increasingly, he's demonstrated his commitment to understanding the role of entrepreneurs in innovation, and consequently, in both job creation and economic development. And his most recent contributions focus on articulating a logic of shared value as an extension of the traditional corporate strategy construct. In an article in the Harvard Business Review in January, Michael describes a new, much more expansive view of value creation by companies. I know you're all as ready as I am to hear Michael's latest insights, so let's get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Porter.
Thank you. That put me on the spot. Hopefully I'm going to have something interesting to say after that introduction. I want to say how proud I am to be here at Babson at this meeting. This meeting is an important meeting every year in our community, and I'm honored to be here. I'm going to talk today about this work that Len just mentioned that has to do with the notion of shared value. And if we step back from that notion, it's really about how business interacts with society. And if you back up even more, it's really about what is actually capitalism? And how does capitalism actually add value in society? We're going to talk very much about how we think about the role of business and how if we open up our game, and if we kind of get beyond the economic value creation models that we have thought were the right way to approach building a successful company, that we will open up a lot of very intriguing possibilities. Business, we know, is fundamental to creating value in society. There is no value in society without a healthy economy, without business. Capitalism is a miracle. It creates economic value out of nothing. When business people can come up with products and services that meet important needs and make them at a profit, that's how value in society is actually created. At least that economic value that is necessary for all other stuff to go well. We know in business that we need a healthy community at some level in order to have a healthy company. All of that we kind of understand. But we're starting to see a very fundamental and challenging problem emerge, those of us in business. Although we all see societal problems all around us today, more than ever before, what's very troubling is that we in business are now not seen as the solution to those problems. Indeed, in many cases, we in business are seen as the problem. You know, there used to be a tremendous consensus in America in particular that if it was good for business, it was good for the community. But right today, there's a lot of people who don't believe that. There's a lot of people who believe that if it's good for business and business is making a profit, we better watch out. That's bad for our community. Look at these companies making record profits. Things don't feel good for us. It doesn't feel like we're advancing at a societal level. So as a result of that, we have an enormous risk facing business, and that is that political leaders now have a hard time supporting business. Government has a hard time cranking out policies that actually improve the environment for business. And we, fundamentally in business, I think, are facing a crisis. A crisis of our environment in which we're operating, but also a crisis of purpose. Why are we in business? Why do we want to come to Babson or Harvard Business School? What's our purpose? And my view is, at least among my students, and I bet you many of you feel the same way, the purpose in life of creating shareholder value, it's not enough. It's not going to cut it. I don't want to dedicate my life to creating shareholder value. That's where we got ourselves in business. We got ourselves that it was smart to run businesses very much driven by this view of creating shareholder value that was a view that we all know and we all repeated. But yet, at the very deep level of purpose, we've got, I think, a fundamental kind of fork in the road here in terms of how we in the business community kind of react to this set of circumstances. There's no time in my lifetime where the suspicion and concern about business and its fundamental purpose have been higher than we have today. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Now, I think businesses have been trying. Businesses have been trying. Some are very skeptical that there could be a lot of activity here on the right. But everybody understands this stuff. But a lot of people are saying, no, this never happens. You can't create shared value. There are trade-offs. You have to give up economic in order to get social. But the overwhelming majority is saying, yeah, I think we can do this. In fact, look at what we're doing. And so my purpose today is for every single person in this room, when you go into whatever nook or cranny of business you're going to go into, whether it's in a large corporation or whether it's in your own company, my goal here is every single one of you will think about your opportunity in a different way. I can tell you that Babson is creating shared value. I have a partnership with Gwen and others here around the 10,000 Small Businesses program. Many of you, hopefully, you all know about that. In which Goldman, with a number of other partners, is trying to work on ramping up entrepreneurship in economically distressed communities. That's creating shared value. What's the core mission of Babson? It's actually to train entrepreneurs and leaders. Babson's not giving charitable contributions to some cause that they have no connection to. Babson is using the core of its core activity to actually benefit society in a way that I would assert, and I'm sure Len would as well, is fundamentally advancing the objectives and the goals and the success of Babson. That's shared value. It's taking social and community issues and bringing them into the core with the capitalist framework, rather than seeing them as doing good or being nice or being generous and looking at them that way. It's seeing the opportunity to integrate economic and social value creation rather than to believe that there are trade-offs between the two. That if you want to be good and do good social things, you have to give up economic things. That's the fundamental mindset. What is shared value? I think that idea is pretty clear. It's creating economic value by creating social benefit. Economic value is profit. And of course, social benefit comes in a lot of different forms. Poverty, health, nutrition, sustainability of water. There's all kinds of societal issues. We're in an era where societal issues are swirling. The recognition of these societal issues is greater than any time again in my lifetime. My kids, you know what these social issues are in ways that we didn't 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, or if we did, we didn't think about it. And this says, shared value says we can bring economic and social together. We can create economic value by creating societal value. We've thought historically, if it's good for business, it's good for the community. We thought that before. But what I think we're starting to learn is if it's good for the community, it actually fundamentally is good for business. If we think hard about how to translate into a capitalist framework. The notion of shared value says that in terms of the purpose for a corporation, all profit is not equal. That profit that comes attached to shared value is a higher form of contribution and a higher form of profit. and that we should aspire to that. That's the basic idea. And the notion is that, and my belief, and I've already said this, is that this question of all these societal issues that we now perceive, this will be the defining characteristic of your era. I don't want to be branded as a capitalist. We have to, in business, learn how to make capitalism understood for what it is, the most powerful vehicle for solving problems and meeting needs on the face of the earth. If we can get these societal problems dealt with through capitalism, what will we gain? Number one, we'll gain sustainability. We won't need all these donations, in order to get stuff done. We'll get scalability. We won't just deal with a few people in a little cute NGO that's doing work on the margin. We can do stuff for millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions and billions of people if we can get it into the capitalist model. We will have accountability if we can get it into the capitalist model. It won't be a matter of whether it's a worthy cause that you're working on. It'll be a matter of whether you've achieved enough results that you can actually do it in a way that makes a profit. Because you create enough value that somebody's willing to pay for that you can overcome your cost. The stakes are very high here. If the more we can bring response to societal problems into the capitalist model, the more likely we are as a society to be successful. We've also missed that, of course, what are the largest needs of society? If we in business want to grow, how do we grow? Do we get the same people to eat more when they're already fat? Or do we open up the market and look for other people that have other needs that aren't met? Like nutrition, or like food for people that actually don't have an adequate diet now. And let's be clever and let's be creative and think about how we can actually serve that need, because that's where the real need is. It's not just doing a little bit more of what we've been doing. That's the idea of shared value. The idea of shared value is we've got to drive these things together rather than see them as separate. Shared value can be created based on our thinking today in three different ways. One has to do with the product you offer and the customers you serve. And we need to open that up. Second has to do with what we think, how to be productive in the value chain. How to configure that value chain and operate that value chain in the most productive way. And what we've learned is if we can rethink that with a broader context, we can make tremendous improvements in productivity, which translate into profit. And of course, the third form of shared value has to do with sort of the ecosystem, or what I call the cluster, surrounding a company. Companies that by and large thought of themselves as controlling their destiny within the boundaries of the company, not realizing that the health of their suppliers and the availability of institutions around them had a fundamental impact on their productivity. We've demonstrated this beyond a shadow of a doubt now, but companies still think too narrowly. They still think that things outside of their walls are not something they should worry about, even if they have a big impact, which perhaps has not been understood. Know that to create shared value, companies have to figure out where they can play the best. Where, given the business you're in, the capabilities you have, the customers you serve, the vendors you buy from, where you have the opportunity to create the most shared value. This is not a checklist thing where everybody has to have a recycling program and everybody has to have this and everybody has to have that. That's one of the problems with traditional CSR. It's kind of a grab bag of hundreds of disparate things rather than a focused effort around things that you can actually impact. And this is just the case of Nestle, that's been, perhaps of the large multinationals, the leading company in the notion of creating shared value. Every business can create shared value. Every one I've ever looked at so far. What do you do if you're a professional sports team? Well, you've got your stadium. So how do you use that stadium to drive progress in the community? And the good teams are able to do that. How do you use your product, if you will, which can be seen not just as sports, but also health, fitness? How do you use your ability, your brand, in order to drive your definition of your product broader and therefore affect and benefit more people? Every industry has opportunities for shared value, but they're in different places. They're in different places. We have an opportunity right now in your generation of business school students to actually transform how we think about our jobs, to transform our understanding of what smart management is, and to do it not to be charitable, because that's not enough of a motive to really sustain aggressive effort for long periods of time, but to do it in order to run better companies. That is, I think, our hope. That is our opportunity. Your generation of business school students, I think, is acutely aware of the problems. Your generation of business school students and college students today, I think, have a tremendous passion to address these problems. The big hurdle we have to get across is, how do we address those problems? And that's, I think, the opportunity that we in business have uniquely to really any other institution in society. You know, my daughter, youngest daughter, graduated from Princeton last May. And the most sought-after job in the class of 2011 at Princeton University was teach for America. And that's great. And I'm thrilled that so many of our most talented young people like you are choosing to do things like that. But ultimately we have to create a world where people see business as just as important and just as impressive and just as significant as Teach for America in kind of dealing with our society's problems. That's your opportunity. That's our duty, and it's our job in business schools to equip you with the mindset and the tools and the frameworks to actually take what we do to a different level. Okay, thank you very much. And what we need is we need to create the capitalist model into a model of value creation, where it's evident and obvious that the businesses are prospering and society is benefiting as well. Every single person in this room can do something about this. Not a single one of you is exempt. How we think about business in the next 20 years is going to have a lot to do with what you choose to do in your companies and your organizations when you go out there. You are going to define what capitalism is. You're going to define how capitalism is viewed. You are going to define whether your organizations have purpose. So we have to rise to the challenge. Thank you.
We started this weekend, and as all of you walking around here have seen in so many different ways on so many different t-shirts, we've also said the same thing. We said the world needs a new definition for entrepreneurship. And hopefully each and every one of you are beginning the process of writing it here every day at Babson. So again, thank you, Michael, for the provocation. Thank all of you for being able to play the game that Michael suggests we have an opportunity to play, because the world is critically dependent upon it. So thanks for the probe and the provocation. Let me turn it back over to the team that made this weekend possible.
And I grew today. So I wanted to just wrap up this weekend by Flip Sasser, Dave Brown, and myself of thanking you for joining us for the 10th annual Babson Entrepreneurship Forum.